49ers general manager John Lynch sent a bold message to Niner fans going into 2025. Is this bad news for San Francisco going into this upcoming season? Let's talk about that here. You're watching the 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to start with today's poll question because it has to do with what we're getting into on today's show. Will the 49ers make the playoffs in 2025? Predict it for me. Join the conversation down in the comment section by typing P for playoffs or M for miss. Share your thoughts with me. Now, as we know, this offseason has been a transitional offseason for this football club. The Niners have made a lot of changes throughout the course of this offseason, yet, you know what's really interesting? Despite San Francisco retooling their roster, some people might call it a slight rebuild, the odds makers still really like San Francisco for 2025. You look at the highest over-under win totals going into this upcoming season, and the Niners have the sixth highest over-under win total among the 32 teams in the National Football League. You have your bona fide Super Bowl contenders, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens at 11.5, and then San Francisco in that next tier with the Detroit Lions at 10.5, and it's the Niners at 10.5. Then the tier after that would be the Chargers, Rams, Commanders, and Texans at 9.5 wins. For those of you who like putting cheddar down, what that means is, if you're not familiar with it, you can either take over 10.5 wins for San Francisco or under 10.5 wins for San Francisco. But to have that number, the real betting aficionados know, that means that the odds makers really like the chances of the Niners having a bounce back year in 2025 after going 6-11 a year ago. And that right there is a good class to be a part of. Right now, do I think that the Niners can contend for a Super Bowl? I do not. I think there are too many holes on the roster, too many question marks, and they're way too young. But for a team that made as many massive changes as the Niners did to their coaching staff and to their roster, to have an over-under win total at 10.5, the odds makers are expecting San Francisco to be in the thick of the race, at the very least, and to be a for sure playoff contender for this year. And then you look at the Super Bowl 60 odds. Again, are the Niners in that tier with those Super Bowl contenders that, when you think about the landscape of the NFL, are firmly in that race? The Eagles of the world, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. No. But here, the San Francisco 49ers, ladies and gentlemen, have the sixth best Super Bowl odds looking ahead to Super Bowl 60, which happens to be at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, as the Niners will be the host of this upcoming Super Bowl. 13-1 odds, not too shabby there. What that means is if you put $1 down and the Niners won the Super Bowl right now at those given odds, you make $13 back. Pretty good bang for your buck if you think that San Francisco can hoist their Lombardi trophy and finally complete that quest for 6. And what an offseason it has been for the Niners. And this is probably why John Lynch is trying to temper expectations, because the Niners have a new defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh. They hired Brant Boyer as special teams coordinator. Several starters walked in NFL free agency. The Niners remade the defense, special teams units. They added 18 rookies with this draft class combined with their UDFA signings. And then, of course, they spent a lot of money in the process, locking up Brock Purdy, giving a contract extension to George Kittle, and also making Fred Warner the highest paid linebacker in the NFL with his contract extension. But from John Lynch's perspective, his point of view, he probably thinks that the Niners can be competitive, but he's trying to tell this fan base here to calm down a little bit. And is that bad news for those of you who are expecting San Francisco to return to their dominance, to get back and turn back the clock to the 2023, 2022, 2021 form when the Niners made it to the NFC Championship game in each of those years? Because of this youth movement and a lot of the changes that John Lynch has overseen. The Niners general manager sent this warning to Niner fans. Temper your expectations going into this year because there could be some rocky times. Here's exactly what John Lynch had to say. We'll be a younger team. And I know, oftentimes with that, it's a young man's game. But you're probably going to take some lumps, and it's going to take some time. You're going to have to make some mistakes. That's no excuse. It's just a reality. And I agree with John Lynch on that. That is a reality for this San Francisco team looking ahead to the 2025 campaign. But while the Niners might take some lumps, while there might be some mistakes made, while there could be some growing pains, how could the Niners level that out? Well, with the hiring of Robert Saleh, which has been a huge offseason upgrade, that combined with this easy schedule, the easiest in the NFL, is massive for San Francisco. And the upgrade of going from Nick Sorensen as your defensive coordinator last year to Robert Saleh this year is like going from your high school sweetheart who was a 5'10" to Sidney Sweeney. I mean, the upgrade is huge for this team because the difference in defensive minds, the ability to develop and maximize talent, to put players in a position to succeed, to be able to make adjustments on the fly in a game throughout the course of a season. The defensive mind that Robert Saleh is, one of the best in the NFL, that can help these young players get through some of these growing pains and some of these learning curves that they're naturally going to run into given they're inexperienced players at the NFL level, and the difference between the college ranks to the pro level is really big and really drastic. But Robert Saleh can help some of these young players with these growing pains. And that combined with this easy schedule, it's not like these rookies who are going to be counted on have to play against elite team after elite team week in and week out. And so, yeah, they might make some mistakes in the early going, but that can make them better over the long haul so that toward the end of the year, the Niners are really rounding into form. And those mistakes that they make could cost you against an elite team. But you can afford to have some wiggle room and some room for error against some bad teams while still being able to win some ball games, in my opinion. More from John Lynch. I think we will have some young players playing, provided they earn those opportunities. But I think that's what's exciting with those guys. When they do get their opportunities, they've kind of gone through those lumps. You're going to really start to improve and see great improvement. We have such a good core of players, of special players, really special players, and that's exciting. So to complement that with some young players with the last couple of draft classes, it's an exciting mix. It's all got to come together, but I like where we're at. I like the way that we're working. And I think that Lynch makes a really good point here. You think about this Niners team. This is still a very talented football team going into this year. I mean, think about the elite players who are still currently residing on this Niners roster. Trent Williams, maybe the best left tackle of all time. George Kittle, the best tight end in football. Dominic Pooney, a top 10 guard at right guard. Jawan Jennings, really solid wide receiver. Christian McCaffrey, if he can get back to close to his 2023 form, that's a huge win. He's one of the best overall players in the National Football League. Brock Purdy has been a borderline top 10 quarterback throughout his career since he came into the league in 2022. If Brandon Ayuk can come back, that's another all-pro. Can some of these young players from last year who were rookies take leaps like a Ricky Pearsall? That would be ideal. On defense, you still have Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Diamador Lenore, and then if you can get a Renardo Green to continue to play well like he did last year. Malik Mustafa once he comes back going into year two. Can Jair Brown get back on track? The ability is there. So John Lynch, in saying what he said, totally valid because you have some really great players and good players who are currently existing on this roster combined with a youth movement. And those good players with those young players, that's a really good blend for San Francisco. And I think that it would be the best case scenario for the Niners if they do start 5 rookies on the defensive side of the ball, because that means that the Niners really crushed this 2025 NFL draft, which they needed to. They lost players, they're eating a lot of dead money, and these young players replenish the cupboard as far as talent goes, but they're also cost-controlled assets over the next few years. And so you look at this Niners defensive line depth chart, there's a chance Mykel Williams, C.J. West, Alfred Collins, all drafted by the Niners back in April, could start for San Francisco along that defensive line, flanking Nick Bosa. And I think they could do that because, frankly, I think they're the most talented players at those respective positions. At linebacker, Nick Martin was really impressive throughout rookie minicamp, OTAs, mandatory minicamp. There's a chance that he could start alongside Fred Warner at one of those linebacker spots. Upton Stout was probably the best nickel corner throughout the spring for San Francisco. Might be small, doesn't play like it, and he didn't look like a rookie. Physical for his size at just over 180 pounds, but he can run a 4.4. He's very physical. He provides San Francisco with sticky coverage. And then him surrounded by Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green, that has the potential to be a very good to elite and young cornerback room for San Francisco. So I see where Lynch is coming from. He's trying to temper the expectations that fans have, thinking, man, 6th best Super Bowl odds. Total over-under for wins is at 10.5. Lynch is warning people, hey, there might be some growing pains here. But I still think that San Francisco can win 11 games. I think that their coaching staff is upgraded. I think that even with the additions of these rookies, they are better. The upgrades from Robert Saleh, Brant Boyer, they're huge. I think that Kyle Shanahan has a bounce-back year. In turn, I think Brock Purdy has a bounce-back year. Easiest schedule is going to help the Niners out. And if they could go from 6-11 to 11-6 year over year and flip that record, that's a huge win right there. Before we dip on out of here, if you want a Niners shirt, these shirts here to my right, on sale for just $18. Are you faithful to the Bay? Are you faithful to the Niners? Do you consider yourself a part of the faithful? If that's the case and you can answer yes to those questions, show it. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics, limited time only, these shirts are on sale for just $18. All you have to do is go to chatsports.com/faithful.